Welcome to you like how I did the hair. I did that. I did that especially as soon as I hit. It's actually unintended things. I think the best things are not planned.
Isn't that the spirit of this program? Out of the blank. Come
Oh,
on.
look, Matt, what's this, your third time on, your fourth time on?
Fourth.
Are you putting it on your resume yet?
At this point, I think I have to. How do I get around it?
Hey, if that gets you a job, it's gotten somebody a job already. So look, I'm putting that on the record board.
I mean, hey, when I put it on my social media, people seem to like it. So,
Well, you went to
maybe
a
that's a sign.
well, you went on this podcast a couple of times. You took that first DM, but then now you're going to weddings. You're growing up on me.
Yeah, my stepbrother just got married yesterday. So
Congratulations to
that
him
was
if
the,
he ever hears this episode. And then 10 years from now, when he has his divorce, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
I sure hope not. I mean, he did have a lot of people saying he was a little too young to be getting married. So
How old is he?
he's 22.
Wow, that is young to be getting married.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah, they've been together for like 5 years or something, or 6 years at this point. So
Well, I talked to my buddy who does like craft beer reviews, and I'm like, I think that's kind of like the thing is like a lot of younger kids are like older or getting older or doing older things, and then the older generation is doing younger things, like a 50-year-old or 50 something year old like texting because they're in a new relationship like they're kids and they're up late at night just talking on the cell phone, and then young kids that are going to like wine tastings and they're like 20s, and it's like the tannins are just right. But I'm like, well, this seems ass backwards a little bit in a sense. You're supposed to have fun in your 20s. I'm pretty vanilla in a sense, but yeah, you're supposed to have fun in your 20s. But then even like I was talking to my cousin who's like, I think he's like 14. And I was like, why aren't you hanging out with kids your age? Like, are you doing anything like on like, Xbox, I guess? And he's like, yeah, I don't really feel like hanging with what my friends are doing. Like, what are your friends doing? Aren't they like 13 or 14? He goes, yeah, but they like smoke cigarettes. And I'm like, smoking cigarettes? What the fuck are we talking about?
yeah, I mean, I can say I definitely wasn't doing that when I was 14. I think I was probably pretty vanilla in my teens and my 20s and now in my 30s, but it all depends, I guess. And I think for some people, what I've noticed as they get older, it depends on kind of what their lived experience is so far, whether they're going to end up kind of going crazy off the rails or not. Like I had a buddy who got married pretty young, probably around 19 or 20, and was married for a while. And when that kind of all, fell apart and they got divorced, he was in his early 30s, but it was as if he was 21. He wanted to go out and party and, go to clubs and get hammered and all that. So it just depends if you've kind of been kind of on lockdown from a young age and in a serious relationship like that where you don't go out and do those things, you live those young years later on, I think.
Or do you prefer like because I think that's the whole concept of working was all about busting your ass until you got to an age where you could retire and then eventually pay it off. But I'm like, but that's kind of seems weird that usually the age you get to retire, what you got a good 10 years after that, and you spend 40 something years working for a company a lot of times. Like a lot of older people can't even retire and live off what their retirement is. And I'm like, it just seems like you'd want to live as much as you possibly can in the time when you're young, when you can experience those things, because eventually going to get to a point. Like I know plenty at my work, there's a lot of bodybuilders now that are starting to become they're older people. And I'm like, well, when
Mhm.
did you start? They're like, well, I just started getting into bodybuilding. It's like, yeah, but you're already like older. Like Ronnie Coleman, one of my heroes, he lifts so much that he is literally for the rest of his life he has to walk around with like crutches on his arms. He can't walk properly, but he was a 300-pound like Mr. Olympia 8 times. He was 0.3% of a body fat, which is less than 1%. Like he was a cop at one point too, and they would just like he wanted to get into one of those brawls or interactions, those things you see on the TV, and then next thing you know there's like nobody wanted to fight with him. Nobody wanted to do any of that. He was just a massive dude, but he looks like, I mean, he still looks good, but he's got like a workout compulsion thing where the doctor's like, if he just stops working out, he'll be able to heal himself. He's like, I can't stop every day, every day. And I'm like, that's the thing is like, I don't think you realize until you get older when you start realizing how rickety and you should have been maybe a little bit more. Is there anything, let's say in your book, is there anything, and you're not old, but and is there anything that you wish you could do when you were younger?
What, like something I wish I had done in my
S-
20s that I
s-
haven't done yet?
Smoke crack.
No, definitely not that. Never had the desire to smoke crack.
Just me. Okay.
No, I honestly, I don't think I really have all that many regrets. I mean, sometimes I say I wish I had finished college in the normal 4 years. You know, I would have been done college 11 years ago if I finished it in the 4 years that most people do. But on the other hand, I was able to gain experience working. I was able to pay off all my loans as I was working. And now I work somewhere where 90% of my schooling is paid for. So I can finish it now and I'm saving a ton of money doing it. So ultimately, I think I did it the right way, though it didn't seem that way years ago. So sometimes it feels like a regret, but honestly, I may have done it the right way. So I don't know if I have any major regrets. Again, I didn't really do anything that was crazy or want to do anything crazy that I never got to do, I guess. I'm not, a super adventurous kind of guy.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't think I got a whole. I don't know if I really am aware of a lot of my regrets. But I don't think you really truly know what regrets you have until like later in your life, because it's kind of hard to look at regrets when you still have so much. Hopefully, so much. Maybe porn. Probably should get into porn at some point. I feel like that's a good stable career until like your 40s or your 50s. That's
Okay.
that's about
So
it.
so
That's all I got. That's all I got. That's all I got.
well, I mean, you're in your 20s, so you still have time to make it happen.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I feel like Tom Holland is kind of out the window now after the new Spider-Man movie comes out. So maybe it's
That could have been your thing. Like there's all those adult films where people are pretending to be famous people and they're lookalikes. You could have been like the Tom Holland guy.
but it wouldn't fit my character if I'm exposing political elites. Okay, it wouldn't be me. That's where all my rants. I can't have kids right now. I got to worry about the political elites. Once I get the political elites out of my head, then, only then I'll have my seventh child.
Well, I have to say, the political elites are elites for a reason. So if
I
you're
don't think
waiting for
I don't think I can have kids. I had a really fucked up dream and I was going to have a neuroscientist kind of diagnose it for me. But I feel like you're probably, because we always talk about dreams usually in an episode. I don't even know if I want to tell you this right in the beginning of the podcast. I'd rather wait, but I mean, do you prefer to
okay.
have your after dinner mint before your food? What do you want? Because it's one where you're gonna be like, Jesus Christ, Robbie. I'm like, I can't help it.
I mean, if you think it's best to wait a little bit, we can do it later.
Yeah, let's
Kind
talk
of
about time
keep
travel
let's
first.
keep the people waiting.
Let's
Let's keep
talk.
them waiting.
Let's talk. I don't want to. I don't want. This is not going to be something that's going to be showing me in the best of fucking lights. I can tell you that much. Um, but I was watching a video and it was like a bunch of like weird rabbit hole videos. And one guy says like, "Did you notice in this Mike Tyson fight?" And it was a Mike Tyson fight. He had a picture of him when he was young, and it was like in 1977, whatever the hell Mike Tyson was, like at his prime. And there was a dude in the back, and he was holding a phone and fucking recording, and they're like, how did this dude have an iPhone? And it's the exact look of an iPhone. And he's like, how did this dude in 19 something have an iPhone at this boxing match where this actually starts to diagnose time travel? And then they showed a picture of the guy's face. And the guy's face, he goes, and this was the dude who was supposedly the person that talked about how he had been from the future and had this newspaper article posted up about him. And it's like, what the fuck are we talking about here? Where I start, and it's just weird because I don't know with technology how good things have gotten. Like it's very interesting. Like now they found the Zodiac killer. So they know who the real Zodiac killer was. And people like I knew people that were like, get out of my way. I've been waiting all like 20 something years for this. And then I knew people that were like, didn't they already find that guy? And it was like, oh no, they didn't. And it's like, oh, okay, who cares? But you start to look at the aspect of like what's real anymore. Is it fake? I have no clue. Um, but I just thought it was an interesting thought because I know you like the time travel stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, what's interesting there is with everything that I've listened to, everything I've consumed regarding time travel so far, and there's so much more that I can dive into. There's an infinite amount of stuff out there that you could read or listen to. But it seems like these people who are experts or claim to know what's possible, what's not, they can't seem to agree. Some say, well, you have limitations of you can only move forward. You can't go back. Well, if that's the case, does it mean that a time machine's been around, since the 60s or something and we just didn't know about it? Like maybe was Doctor Who's time travel device a real thing? Was that, I mean, that's from the 60s, right? So I think for me, I question the timeline. And then again, at this point, what is time?
That's the thing. That's the thing. It's like what's more plausible in your head? Interdimensional travel or alien beings? Well, they're starting to realize that they can open up other dimensions to be able to
Now,
dive
wait,
down the what?
you said a bad word. Demi Lovato says you can't say alien. Alien is
I said
offensive.
interdimensional beings.
You said aliens and you
Yeah.
said interdimensional
Why is
beings.
aliens offensive, Demi?
I guess it's a take on how it's perceived as offensive when you're talking about like immigration.
Well, that I can
People don't,
see that. It's kind of like
yeah.
why is the border patrol still using fucking horses? It might be effective, sure, but if you look at it from a photo op, it looks goddamn awful. It looks like
Well,
terroristic.
it looked bad because people mistook the reins for whips.
Yeah, I know.
There were no whips.
I know.
So that was kind of,
But they're still taking away the horses, so it's okay.
yeah.
Biden, nobody realized, like, but they're like, Biden's still taking away the horses. It's like, did anybody realize Obama had a quote of never underestimate Biden's ability to fuck something up? Like, what are we talking about? There used to be the guy that used to say, that's just Grandpa Joe. That's fucking Uncle Joe that used to just do, and hey, he's president. Who cares?
Yeah, I just find it funny how and all politicians do this, I think, for the most part. They'll say one thing and do another. He's campaigning and saying, he doesn't like this policy or that policy. And I just heard the other day, because of what's going on at the border and all the problems, with the border crisis, the stay in Mexico policy from the prior administration, he's going to reenact it. Biden's going to reenact it. But I'm sure you won't hear a lot of people talking about it because they won't want to publicize that he's doing the same thing that Trump did,
I don't want to get into the politics shit. I can't. I gotta stop doing it. I've been doing it a lot of episodes, but I just like the controlling aspects of things is that you start to see it. It's like you see the same thing in religion, you see the same thing in cults. And I've been trying to like just dive down into the deeper part of history. But then like it goes back to the guy with the phone at the Mike Tyson match. Why would you go to the fight if you're gonna go back in time? And I can see if you went back to, is Mike Tyson really that good of a fighter? I gotta see him in his prime. And then you go back in time. Why would you choose a fight that wasn't the fight where he bit somebody's ear off?
Good question. I mean, maybe
I
this
fucking think things through.
particular,
I think things
well,
through.
okay, so here's a scenario for you then. What if this individual,
Give it
what
to
if
me.
this individual with this iPhone, right, was from the 1950s, went into the future and said, oh, look at this contraption. This is cool. Takes the phone, brings it back, doesn't go all the way back to where they came from, but goes back to that fight. So maybe at that point, because of where he started, maybe he didn't know that Mike Tyson was famous for biting a chunk off of Evander Holyfield's ear.
But this is what I don't understand is that it only makes sense because it sounds plausible. But then when you ask the scientific proof behind that, they go, we don't know. It's kind of like Pete Holmes's joke where he goes, we're on a planet, a round ball that's floating in endless nothingness. And as that endless nothingness is still going, it's creating more endless nothingness. And he goes, does that make any fucking sense? He goes, when you ask a scientist this, the scientist just goes, we don't know. I think you really start to contemplate your own existence. You end up fucking sitting and stroking your hand through your hair like Kramer. Like, what the fuck is life? I don't know it. We have people that wear really high shorts or really long blue pants, wear a button-up shirt, a belt, and they deliver your precious packages. And they sometimes don't even do that properly. They know what you're, they categorize it. You go to a fucking box either at the end of your driveway or down your neighborhood, unlock it, and get your package from your cousin in Boca or wherever the hell they're from. That's nuts to me. Like, do you ever just like I'm not dumb in saying this, but do you ever just start to examine the bullshit? Like, for instance, oh my God, this really pissed me off the other day. I don't want to rant, but I got to.
Go for it.
So I get the essentialness of a fire alarm, but why, when they have to replace the battery to it, it just beeps every minute? Like, you can't just do it every couple of minutes, but it beeps once every minute. And then I look like a fucking idiot walking around my house. That's an open floor plan, mind you. And it just echoes. So I'm like, is it the one upstairs? I go upstairs. Then I hear the beep downstairs. I'm like, God damn it, downstairs. I go downstairs. I got 4 fucking downstairs. I'm like, is it this one? So I'm waiting a minute. And then it feels like since I'm waiting for it, it waits an extra 30 seconds. And I'm like, beep. And I'm, motherfucker. And it's behind me. But it did it from, I think, and fuck the pandemic for this, made Walmart not 24 hours anymore. So it's 1 o'clock in the morning and this bitch is going off every single minute. Try going to bed with that. That is difficult. And then I think I might have added into my horrible fucking dream I had because it was the same night, but it woke me up from it at least.
As unsafe as it sounds, you just got to rip the battery out, man.
That
just got to rip it out.
It still went. It didn't have a
Oh,
battery in it. They plug into the wall. When there's no battery or it's low battery, it'll beep every minute until you replace it.
See, I thought mine was bad. I have battery operated ones, but I bought, so some of my detectors, I bought a set where they're linked. If one beeps, the other beeps. So you basically got to change the battery in both of them because you have no clue which one. Like the one upstairs will beep if the one in the basement's beeping.
Well, there's a test button on it because when I was trying to replace the battery at like 2 o'clock in the morning, I hit the test thing and it beeped, and the other one started fucking beeping. I was like, oh God, my neighbors are gonna be pissed. But I think maybe it's because you replace the batteries at the same time. Usually, when I was saying I had to replace a battery for my fire alarm, people were like, well, got to replace the other ones too because they're all probably about to go out because you change them at the exact same time when you install them. And I was like, yeah, but I don't think so because sometimes like they're just different. There's different. I'll put a crappy battery in one, and then that's what I don't like. With the different grades of batteries, there's also different strengths.
Well, and honestly, I think changing them all at the right time or the same time makes sense. Like they say, whenever you change your clocks, when we fall back, when we spring forward, that's when you should do it. You should change all the batteries and all your smoke detectors and carbon monoxide and all that.
So I threw my fire alarm out and I took a bag of Orville Redbacker's kettle corn and I've taped it to the top of the thing. So if the fire gets really hot, I'll know because the popcorn will pop.
Oh my God, you're crazy.
I'm not crazy. I just have standards of how I choose to
Popcorn
live.
is your standard.
You
Popcorn
gotta
is your
draw
standard.
lines, Matt. You gotta draw lines, okay? People draw wrong lines on things. They choose like, I don't want to talk about the corporate elites, but god damn it, if I'm not gonna fight to make sure my favorite restaurant doesn't have a vegan meal. And I'm like, I don't give a fuck about that. I care about the fact that we all might be slowly controlled by a grasp of hand that might be Illuminati or not. I don't know. But
Yeah, no, I think there's definitely a discussion that has to be had, and I think some legislation that we need around a lot of these big companies. I know we've talked about, before different companies and the control that they have over things, but one of the things I've looked at recently is Amazon. So Amazon has become so massive, not only, I mean, they started off just selling books, right? And then they're like, yeah, throw some CDs and DVDs in there. Let's sell those too. And they just keep expanding. So one of the things that they did a couple years ago, I guess in response to what you were saying about sometimes you don't get the packages. Well, now they're delivering their own stuff, and it was supposed to be in supplement to what USPS and UPS were doing. Well, they delivered, I think it was in July of this year, or maybe it was last year. They delivered like 66% of all their orders. And it's supposed to be by the end of 2021, it's supposed to be 80% of their own orders that they're shipping. And apparently in some areas, they ship things that aren't even ordered on Amazon. So they're basically becoming a UPS and FedEx competitor in those areas because they're shipping. They have stuff. I don't know. Do you know they're in healthcare too?
I'm
They've
sure you
been
could probably
doing,
get an IV bag off Amazon.
they are about to roll out, from what I hear, they've been working on a home COVID test kit. So they have that. They
That
also,
that's a weird one right there. You know who invented the PCR test that we used for COVID? It was
I don't know the name offhand, but I know who you're talking about.
he's
Yeah.
a scientist who got the idea from it on LSD. Like
Mhm. I
what the
think, didn't he pass away? I think he's dead now,
I don't know.
because I think somebody had said, there was an interview with him about how those tests work. And basically, with a PCR test, depending on how closely you look at it, or I don't know if it's something that you're spinning in a centrifuge. If you spin it more, it'll ratchet up or down the levels of whatever it's finding. So it can allegedly be manipulated. And what he was saying is it wasn't something that he envisioned for this kind of testing. I'm not a scientist, so I don't know, any more on it, but I thought that was interesting. Like, this is what we've been relying on, and maybe that's why there are so many times where there's false positives. You could be negative, then be positive, and from minute to minute, your test results could change if you keep taking tests.
Yeah, also with parole, why is it so easy that I can just walk over to a Dollar General and get a fucking marijuana piss tester?
Really?
Yeah, I just pee on it's like peeing on a tampon and then it tells you if you had marijuana in your system or not. I've only had to take one pee test for a job.
Yeah.
And she gave me a cup and I was like, you got a bigger cup? She's like, well, all the urine. Oh, here's a better example. So when I was going through my health issues,
Yeah.
they're like, we need every drop of your urine or whatever, and you need to put it in this bucket. And I'm like, do you have another bucket? They're like, every time you pee needs to be in there. And I'm like, I'm gonna fill that bucket up in one, and I'm gonna go multiple times a day. Like, how much do you drink? I'm like, I drink a lot of stuff, like water, fucking soda mostly, um, energy drinks a lot. And she's like, okay, I can give you two. I was like, three. You need to give me three. And I filled all three up and gave them to them. They were like, that's a lot. I was
Wow.
like, yeah, I mean, that was only a 7-hour night.
How big were these buckets?
They're huge, dude. Like the size, way bigger than about the
We're
height of
talking like a bucket of popcorn at the movie theater, or like what?
the height of like maybe a family size thing of cereal, but then the width of like, oh, I don't know, like a small fish tank. A fish tank filled with my piss.
Oh my God. That's wow. Three of them.
If you don't pee that much, you might need to be staying more hydrated. I have an electrolyte imbalance, so I have to make sure I'm
Uh,
always constantly hydrating because I'll die.
yeah, I mean, I try to hydrate as well as I can, but
I got you. Did I get pick up on the microphone?
yes, it did.
Awesome.
What is that? A natty?
No, it's not a nice. It's a fucking Diet Sam's Cola.
Oh, okay. I saw the blue at the bottom. I'm like, is he drinking a natty right
fucking
now?
11 a.m.
I mean, there is such a thing as day drinking. People do it.
Yeah, my buddy, he was doing my podcast at 11. He was drinking a fucking Miller. He's like, might as well. It's my Saturday. I was like, okay. All right. Got to do a
There you go.
podcast right, man. Be yourself. I always tell people,
Yeah.
be themselves because I don't want anybody to control you. And I would be a hypocrite if I tried. Correct? Correct? Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Demi
Yeah.
Lovato, don't fucking tell me what I can't say. Did she really say that?
Now,
Don't put words in her mouth.
they
I'll do
did
that for
say
you.
it. They did. No. So it was an interview or something. And I think it was about the the show that Demi has on Peacock, which is about extraterrestrials, and she did they did a past life regression, like hypnotism and all this stuff. I'll admit, because I'm interested in this stuff, as obnoxious as I think Demi Lovato is, I watched it and I did think it was pretty interesting. It was only a 4-part series, but I
Shut up,
think
Sonny. Shut up, Sonny. That's what you should have said, Sonny, from that Disney show she was on.
I forgot about that.
Okay.
I forgot about that. That was a while ago, I think. But no, I think that what was interesting to me is they went around. It was Demi and Demi's sister and this other guy, and they went around and they met with different people. And most of them, I wasn't aware of who they were. And I forget which one it was, but there was one where they met with this person and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I know who that is. Like from other things that I've followed or listened to, I'm like, I know who that is. So I think instantly for me, that made it somewhat credible. But my problem with Demi Lovato is that they're just all over the place. Like my favorite moment, okay, this was years ago. This was before Demi got clean. But do you remember the interview where somebody said, what's your favorite dish? And this was over in the UK. So dish meaning meal. What's your favorite meal? Well, they said dish. So so Demi goes, mugs. I like mugs because they hold warm things. And
Jesus Christ.
So for me, like,
oh God, bless her
Demi's
heart.
intelligence, I think, was always in question for me with that. And then the recent freak out at was it a frozen yogurt shop? There was like sugar-free froyo, and Demi went nuts over it or something like that. So I think there's a lot to unpack there mentally with Demi Lovato, but I mean, hey, live your life. More power to you. I don't know.
Well, I this gets crazy talking about it because like the aliens things. I have a lot of thoughts on it. I've talked to plenty of people in the community involved with it, either researchers or experiencers, people that say they've experienced it. I gotta be careful when I say I you know what, fuck, I don't have limits. UFO Twitter, I've had a lot of pushback and a lot of acceptance, and I'm open to everything, obviously. Experiencing wise, the stories of experiencers, a lot of people talking about being like abducted from their room, is the same symptoms when I talked to a neuroscientist who talked about sleep paralysis. It's just your body hallucinating people. Like you'll have like this guy experiences a lot of sleep paralysis for the past 15 years, always experiences, which is why he went into this field. And he talked about how there's a thief in his room, just a thief, just a random guy in his room. And he wasn't there. It wasn't there. Your brain is so powerful, it's able to distort your reality to see these types of things. So the experiencer story I heard could possibly be that, even though he was 100% proof that it wasn't that. But I'm like, I don't know, because I don't know if you could really be able to determine if it wasn't reality or not. Also hinting at the dream I had, it still fucks me up thinking about it. Like I'll cry if I don't even know if I could tell you it without really tearing up a little bit. So I know that's just incentivizing you to be like, tell me the story, Robbie. Tell me the story. I'm leaving you cliffhangers. They stole my tooth. No, but we get to this point where, like, I know people that in the UFO community that do not like the word aliens. They don't like the word grays. They don't like any of those reptilian things. They prefer them to call them others or different things of that sort because it does come off as an aggressive thing, which I can understand. But I mean, if to still skepticize if they even exist or not, because in my belief, I think through what I've talked to, especially in 941 of my podcast, my buddy Campbell is a researcher. We're talking about weather phenomenon. Now, there's a lot of these lights and these things that might be a distorted thing from climate change or types of things that we've affected our climate to be able to distort these weather phenomenon occurrences of electromagnetic fields that actually could have this type of hallucination effect on our brains to make us see these types of things. And it might not actually be in reality. But obviously that's still speculation. It's still somewhat sketchy of a topic, and UFO community most of the time want it to be 100% true, but I have no clue. Mostly because it is, you got to base a lot of it off what you can really tell as fact. But like what we say, what do we know? We don't really know. You know what I mean? And I also think it might be government tech. I listened to a Joe Rogan podcast with a CIA guy, ex-CIA, who's now an NSA, and he talks about all this government tech, and he's doing a sci-fi show for he's doing a sci-fi show about aliens, and his name's Mike Baker, and he talks about this is government tech. Like when they start saying, "Oh, the UAP thing, this new stuff, we're looking into it." 1940s has happened. They didn't just stop
Mhm.
looking into it. They kept looking into it. Something that's a national security risk, you don't just stop looking into it. And it's kind of like that means Men in Black. How come we haven't seen anybody address a team, even if it is not the actual team, if it's more of a stage face to say, hey, we have a group of people working on studying what these extraterrestrial beings are. Instead, you start finding stuff in weird, sketchy territories like the Center for Cancer Study or whatever it's called. It's like 5 people that get paid $5 million a year, $500 million a year, or something like that. And that whole funding is just by studying things that reduce the risk of existential risk, which is every possible AI innovation that could possibly expand past human intelligence. And that's why AI is getting a heavily look at now, because of the fact that it's actually incentivizing more danger and actually distorting people's thoughts and perspectives. Such as my example that I can use from my own experience is I watched a horse kill a crocodile in a nature video. It killed it, just stomped right on its head and killed it. I didn't know that crocodiles, like natural predators, are fucking horses. I had no fucking clue. I think that's 100% right, because I've seen many accounts now.
I'm sure that that's happened, but has it happened enough to say
I
natural
watched 10
predator? That
videos in a row. So, and they weren't the
really,
same one. It was all different. It wasn't the same guy either. So I was like, there's a lot of fucking accidents happen this way. But their horse stomp is like really powerful. I don't think anybody really
yeah.
realizes that, to break through a crocodile's hide. But that video led me to a bunch of other those videos, and then it led me to crocodile eating another crocodile, and fights between a crocodile and an elephant. Then it led me into a person falling into a pit of crocodiles, like an actual human being falling into a pit of crocodiles. Now that sounds funny to laugh at, but notice how that algorithm had just did that to me. How many, like the whistleblower, the Facebook whistleblower, people are thinking she's a government sanctioned whistleblower on the concept of she created her profile in October, and then by October 5th was verified, which is about a week or 2 week process. Then immediately the algorithm started getting programmed to give her more followers. I followed her thinking that she was exposing corruption. They realized that was the aspect that they could tackle to get her more following, even though nobody knew who the fuck she was before that. But they're passing the censorship bill, which is an issue Mark Zuckerberg's pro for. It's going to lead up a whole doorway of basically you're not going to be able to do podcasts anymore. It's going to be all fucking censored content shit. But it's bigger moderation for this type of thing. Now, with alien stuff, is it easier to have a bunch of people be conspiratorial about it and have these things and this whole new idea, or throw you off a trail of something bigger that could be coming down the way, which could be an expansion of business? And that's where I start getting into the aspect of things, is because how many things have we seen, back to the Amazon thing we talked about in the beginning, the expansion of business? They started selling healthcare products. They started selling beauty products. They started selling fitness products, nutritional shakes, exercise equipment. Next thing you know, there's not a whole lot of GNCs around anymore. A bunch of our GNCs down here closed. We have people come in all the time asking to buy supplements or asking to buy this, and we're a gym facility. So next thing you know, you start to realize that they're slowly cutting out the market of indoor shopping and starting to make it more incorporated online. But not only in the aspect of everything, your favorite site or your favorite place to go eat is now going to be online. Now it's a concept of everything is going to be mandated by a couple of small or big giant corporations, like a Walmart, but online, which will eventually be Amazon. Walmart just expanded theirs in my town to now have more online shopping capabilities and less in-person stuff. So they
Yep.
actually downsized a lot of these shelves items and put them all into small categories, rather than expanding it out to make it more in-person shopping. They decide we're going to capture the online revenue. talking to Bobby, I told him he's eventually going to be phased out. I hope it doesn't happen. But when it comes to online orders and just having a meal show up for you and you don't have to go anywhere, is way more easily accessible unless you're some of these fucking 20-year-old kids that want to go out and go fucking sip a latte or fucking suck down a wine and smell some fucking tannins.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, to me, it's a scary thing how some of these big companies, like Amazon, for example, you know, the fact that they purchased Whole Foods, like that was huge because they struggled for about 10 years with what they called Amazon Fresh. Shipping perishable goods is incredibly challenging because without the right refrigeration, something like, say, a head of lettuce, that can only make it maybe like 24 hours and then it's no good sitting out. So having Whole Foods gave them all these hubs where things can be delivered quickly in those local areas. But what's even wilder, have you ever seen an Amazon Go store? So I know that there's a couple in the UK. There might be a few in the States, but I've never physically been to one. But these stores, when you get to the door, you scan a code, like I guess it would be a QR code from your Amazon account. You walk in and there's sensors throughout the whole store. And it's small. I mean, it's probably the size of like a little corner store in a city. It's not big. You pick up everything that you need. It tracks everything that you pick up and you put in your bag. When you get to the door to leave, you scan your code again, you walk out, they email you a bill. You never interact with a human. You just take what you want to take and it tabulates it all and sends you a bill.
I like that.
I mean, it sounds cool, but I think it's another thing where Amazon's getting involved in so many different things. I mean, think about how you can find just about anything on Amazon. And what's bad, like we've talked about big tech manipulation on other episodes that I've done, and Amazon is no different. So what Amazon does, they sell most of their items, about 60% or 65%, through third parties. So, Robbie wants to be an Amazon seller. You have a product you're going to sell, you go on, you sell through Amazon. Well, what Amazon does is they take all the data of what people click on, what they buy, what they like, kind of what their habits are for your product and everybody else that's selling things similar to you. They take all that aggregate data and they say, how can we make a version of this? And they just copycat you. And then they start selling the same thing.
Or creating a
And
clone.
right. And then what they do, when we've talked about like manipulation of search results, when you search something on Amazon, part of it is what fits your search, whatever you typed in, what makes the most sense. That's part of it. But the other part of it is what would give the highest profit margin for Amazon. So they'll put things with a higher profit margin on the first page because 70% of shoppers never leave the first page. They don't click page 2. They stop at page 1. I'm crazy. I look at 4 or 5 pages before I do anything, but I must be the exception and not the rule. 70% of people don't even leave the first page.
Well, I say I like it because I really don't want to fucking wait in line for fucking an hour and a half and then have someone, when I get up to the register, ask me how my day's doing. I ask them how their day's doing. And the next thing you know, they start talking about their fucking alimony they got to work to pay off. And fucking, oh my God, just shut the fuck up and put my deodorant in the bag. But I also do like the in-person communication. But see, this is the interesting part about when you start diving down the internet rabbit hole of why tech is bad and why there's a lot of issues that need to be mandated and fixed because they're not leaving the door open for a small consumer to be able to profitize off anything. It's more about big giant corporations. Is that there's also with the giant algorithms, there's also blacklisting, which makes it impossible to find somebody. I know a couple famous people who are blacklisted where you have to type in their full exact profile name before you could even get a possible result. They'll give you everything but that person. for
Really?
a brief amount of time. And I still think to this day, and I'm not trying to rationalize why some of my YouTube videos might not get a lot of views, but I do think a lot of my YouTube thing, ever since I got my first flag, I have been put on a somewhat blacklist in a way, because a lot of my stuff, the subscribe button isn't really on my profile like how it is for everybody else. It's a little bit deeper down on like in the description. And it's like, well, you're supposed to have it up on top so people can click it. And you start to kind of get into this aspect of like, does that affect my search results? Why, when I type in out of the blank and then I'll type in Matt Fulmer, I might get something that's completely not you. I'll get something completely different. It's not that I'm the highest one up there or I'm the lowest one on the totem pole. It's that they don't necessarily want you to be found. But when I duck, duck, go that, they'll pop you up. And it's very, very interesting how they choose what to censor and how to censor, which I don't really appreciate. But I mean, there's a lot of news going on because Joe Rogan had Dr. Sanjay Gupta on his podcast, who's a CNN chief medical officer. I don't know if you've seen that episode yet.
I haven't seen it, but I've seen clips and kind of heard the gist of it. He kind of confronted him, why is your network doing this? Because he
Openly lied.
obviously works with CNN, right?
Openly lied. So recently I started, there was a recent hashtag trending called Delta. And the first thing I thought of was like, fuck, coronavirus. Is it the goddamn virus trending again? No, it was Delta Airlines. They're refusing the mandate. They're saying, no, you can travel, which is a good business aspect. That means you're going to get a bunch of people going to you, because Southwest canceled, I think, close to 10,000 something flights because of people refusing and really fighting about this mandate thing. And they said, no, you need to, or you're not
Yeah.
fucking flying. And they canceled flights. They said an article after that was posted, they said another article and said it all over the news was it wasn't about mandates, when there's a whole list of fucking videos saying that it was because of that. It's now they don't want it to be that, like there's a whole giant group of people that are storming up against the idea that you're forcing them to do something they might not necessarily want to do. We got to change the optics so it doesn't look like that. I start to question where I'm like, why does it say 56% of people are fucking vaccinated, yet the COVID rates keep going up? I'm starting to question. You guys are like going very back and forth on things as well too, which I'm not a fan of the media doing that. Why, when they had that shooter in Texas, they never even talked about the shooter, all because of the color of the person's skin? I go, does that necessarily matter? Why was that kid home that same day? That you start to look at this aspect of things too, where I'm like, I don't like how you shame one thing and then you don't talk about the other. It's like, oh, there's only one thing happening. You're creating a biased thought in media, which is, it's hard because when you start getting into that, people say it's a racial thing. And I'm like, well, what are we talking about here? It's something deeper than that. It's now that your thoughts, and you're now distorting your own perception on what reality is, where it's going to incentivize of how much do you know and how much do you not know. Tech is going to come in and it's going to capture fucking everything, because you can't get off your ass to see that they're fucking you. They're literally legit fucking you. And I don't think I'm crazy in saying that. I'm just starting to notice what's more profitable from a business aspect. And that is whatever can get me a goddamn view. If I say one thing that I know society is going to be upset about because we've distorted the perception so much, then that's going to get us less views and more hate on us.
That distortion is the key, I think. So you look at situations like what happened at the NASCAR race, while
Let's
the
go, Brandon.
interviewer, let's go,
Let's
Brandon.
go, Brandon.
So that is a prime example, along with, yeah, exactly. Ironically, my brother who just got married, his name's Brandon. But
let's go, Brandon.
yeah. So I think between situations like that, the whole Southwest thing, between whether it's, the political world or the media, it's all gaslighting. They want us to think, oh, well, maybe I'm just going crazy. Maybe what I thought about that was wrong. Maybe I wasn't right on that. Well, no, we should not sit here and allow ourselves to be subjected to this gaslighting. The fact that the whole Southwest issue with pilots, that was because of mandates. They tried to say it was weather. Jen Psaki tries to say, oh, it was a weather thing. No, because you know what? If you're operating in Florida and you're Southwest or you're Frontier or you're United or you're Delta or you're American, guess what? you're all going to have to deal with that same weather. Why was it just one airline that day that had all those problems with flights? Like, I call BS on that. Like, don't try to gaslight me and tell me what I'm seeing I'm not seeing. And I think that's the problem, and why so many people don't trust the media. I personally don't trust them as far as I can throw them, because they out and out lie. And that reporter that said, "Oh, let's go, Brandon. They're cheering for you. Do you hear them?" She was applauded by her colleagues, and I'm sure her bosses. She'll probably get a raise and a promotion because she thought on her feet. No, she lied. You can ignore it. Obviously, what they were saying was not something that should be said on TV. Whether you believe what they were saying or not, I won't get into.
Wait, they weren't
But
saying let's go, Brandon?
oh no, they weren't. But whether you agree with what they're saying or not, because it's profanity, sure, it shouldn't be on TV. As a reporter, don't acknowledge it. Don't try to tell me they're
Ah,
saying
but they
something they're
can
not.
acknowledge it when they say fuck Donald Trump. Hey, hey, fuck Donald. That's a song.
There's a double standard in general with a lot of things like that. There's a lot of things that, good, bad, or indifferent, that I've noticed our current president say or do, that I sit here and I think, if our last president had done that, he'd be hanging in the town square. Like, he would not be it would not be ignored, I guess, is what
Well,
I'm
you
saying.
start to
Like,
notice
things.
who's getting a kickback.
Yeah, well, and that's true. I think a lot of it's about money, and it's about control, it's about power.
When I watched that CNN guy on Joe Rogan, and you have to watch it. I really recommend you watch it. When he's pulling up everything about like this whole vaccine versus unvax talk and discussion, and it's in a natural way, you saw him literally denying the fact and still going to the same point. And I was trying to notice what he was saying because he would lead off it down a different route or a different thing where he's like, Joe Rogan will say something, and then the dude will just go off on another thing, and then get Joe Rogan to talk about like, yeah, you did jujitsu instruction after all this like vaccine talk. He goes, you did jujitsu instruction, didn't you? He goes, yeah, I did. He goes, well, why'd you stop? He goes, well, because I started noticing like brain issues. Like, this is going to be a bad rabbit hole for me to go down to, and I had that self awareness to stop. I've seen it end CTE for a lot of people. They clipped that, put it on the next Joe Rogan, or not Joe Rogan. They put it on CNN the next day, literally going through that whole episode, redoing everything he just said. I'm like, this is the most obvious thing of you guys were caught in a fucking lie, and now you're
Yep.
going back over it. But they clipped it all up and go, see, why would you listen to a guy? Listen to him talk about how he's got head trauma, and then they play the clip of him talking about head trauma. He did that so many fucking times where I've listened to that episode at least 50, 60 times already now, and it's a 2.5, almost actually it's a 3 hour episode. I'm listening over to it. I'm picking up more things now where I'm like, you're psychologically trying to create traps in every single way of your speech. And I start to look at like, there's just so much bullshit is when I start to get upset with, which is like, I think they need to be held at a higher standard. If cops can be sued now for anything that they do that could be liable in a thing that they're called to, then I think media should also be able to be sued and not go under the scapegoat as we're the same entertainment as the WWE. I don't think that makes any sense because that's not how you've been like journalism. Can we bring back real effective journalism where journalism isn't just writing a fucking blog? Why do I have to go to find actual news or good journalism or good actual like news things to listen to? Has to be fucking TikTok or has to be some type of off-brand person's blog that nobody ever fucking gets to hear about where it's giving an honest take on the things that doesn't have a bias in the thing. I think there needs to be a media source that doesn't have any biases. I think that's the issue is that the people that are they're all got something in their pocket. Like the dude kept bringing it back to vaccines. But he goes, but
Yep.
we both have the same immunity. I have a better immunity than you because I got it naturally and I got over it. And he goes, but you still get the vaccine, right? Like it kept going back to that. It's like, but what do you have in your fucking pocket? And I hate to talk about it because it'll just get flagged off YouTube. Hopefully this doesn't, but I don't think I'm not giving any. This is opinion stuff, and it's when I'm fucking saying. But they've gone from the vaccination rate being 100% effective, and now it's dropped down to 75. Is that because it's manipulating different variants? Okay, toss it under that. Or are you selling something that necessarily might not be what it was? It's your sales pitching in a different tone. And the CDC changed the definition of vaccine, right?
No.
When you say the word vaccine, it means the cure for something or the fix for something to make sure you don't get it, right? It's to stop the infection or stop from getting whatever that thing is. Now it says
Mm-hmm.
it now says onto that lessen symptoms. It doesn't just say
Ah.
all that other stuff. They added this on recently. And they also called what is it? Domestic terrorism is now anti-mandates. They changed that too.
Yeah.
And this
And
leads into
this,
something bigger. Ready? Because there's a story I read about eventually the government will pay you, or not pay you, but they'll track your browsing history and give you a better social credit. So if they're able to look at your internet search history, then you'll get a better credit. Maybe, or it might hurt your credit. It helps or hurts. So if they track it and they see something they don't like, oh, domestic terrorism, that could just be anti-mandates. You start to see how the language that they use, it's very, very broad brush. Like, we don't know, but everything we're going to shove in your fucking face is going to be completely that you should. And then, but we don't know. But I
well,
just wish it would be honest about it. And that's when I start to get pissed off and get into this. I'm sorry to fucking rant, dude, but it gets me heated as shit.
they don't have to be honest. You know why? Because you will sit there and watch the whole episode from Joe Rogan. Somebody like me, I might go and watch it. 99% of people that are sitting there in front of their TV watching CNN, they're going to accept whatever edited, copied and paste, video that they have in front of them. They're going to take that as fact. They're going to trust it. Oh, it's CNN. I trust it. I take that as fact. They're not going to go and do the research. They're not going to look at the source material. They're not going to do any of that. So I think that's a big problem. And overall, what you're describing, this is gaslighting. Going and changing the definition of something midstream, that's gaslighting because something is defined as one thing or another. Oh, now all of a sudden, no, it's not that anymore. Like I see why you're fired up about it because, honestly, I think we need to wake up and see what's being done, what we're being fed. And journalism hasn't been journalism for quite some time at this point. Journalists were supposed to be keeping the people in power in check, reporting on what they're doing. What are the facts? Now you can't even tell what's fact and what's opinion, and it's all a mess.
Well, I don't know if that pisses me off more, or maybe it's the concept of they say something so watered down or some bland version where it's like, well, we had to change to fit a better thing of we had to change to the new times or the new information or the new this. I'm like, no, why are you saying it like you're doing it to help? Like, I get it if you're trying to change these things so you can try and save lives by doing this, but you're not giving both sides of the information where it actually might be better if you necessarily have natural immunity or you've gotten it and gotten over it. You know what I mean? You start to see like Pfizer is making a lot of money off this thing and they're telling you it's never going to end. Fauci comes out and gives you this thing called you might be able to gather at Christmas, but probably not. We're hoping. It's like, shut the fuck up, man. I saw two people the other day in my town fucking tonguing each other's throats. I fucking watched. It was nice. But you start to get this aspect of things where it's like, what are you're getting incentivized by something. Why, when the Fauci documentary came out on Disney, fucking Disney, back to my Disney conspiracy, Jesus Christ, or Brandon's Disney conspiracy, Jesus. They made a Fauci documentary. You couldn't rate it on Rotten Tomatoes. You can rate the percentages, but you can't comment. You can't leave a comment. Nope, that's the only one on there. You can't leave a comment. I'm like, but you have Epstein on fucking Hulu. You got all these weird documentaries of exposing government shit and weird, scary paranormal or murder documentaries or mass murders or Unabomber documentaries, which I am fucking going to watch when I fucking get time. I was watching
They
the
allow
Epstein one
us.
last night.
Now, there's a few Epstein ones. I know there was one on Netflix that I watched. It's interesting, and he's sick, but was sick. I think with a lot of it, we can see and watch what they want us to watch. There are certain things like there's a theory about whether it's UFO stuff or whatever the case may be, that a lot of things that we see, out in the media, whether it's news media or just, entertainment media, a lot of it is meant to be what some refer to as a guardrail. It's to distract us enough, but to keep us inside the lines of a certain area without really going too far out and finding the truth. And I think that's kind of the big debate with any of the UFO, UAP type of stuff. If there is truth to it, if there's a lot that we don't know, I think the big question comes down to, can we handle it? I think there are some people who could, who could handle that news and whatever the potential existential threat could be as a result. But I think a lot of people would freak out. And that's why they don't release information. That's why that release a couple months ago was basically nothing. It really didn't have anything of substance to it. I think because they're afraid of how some people might react. But then again, if you want to think of it in terms of, okay, well, if we've known since the 40s, 50s, 60s, whenever we got a grip on who these people were, or or whatever, if they were going to do something to harm us, wouldn't they have done it by now?
But here's the perspective that I bring in is, why can't they just release it to a whistleblower? Why can't they give it to, because the whole idea, and I was in a Twitter space where a guy who directed Skinwalker Ranch, he's eventually coming on this show.
Oh,
I don't know
nice.
when, if it's going to be before or after this episode. But we were talking back and forth. I was like, I really enjoy your perspective on the fact that he brought a good point up in this Twitter space, about this guy who was an experiencer that was on my show before. And we started, he's a good guy. But he was talking about how that the public wasn't ready, and that there's a lot of accounts of people that found alienware or alien stuff, and they called to a news story to get a story on it. And when the news people showed up, they go, sorry, like someone had scared them into submission or scared them to hide it, or something had happened to that sort. But
The
then it
Men in
brings,
Black.
no
But
more.
that's their job. That's
Yeah, but
their
it,
job is to cover it up,
more like the government actually coming
allegedly.
to your door and saying, I'm going to fucking put a bullet in your head if you talk about this. But that's how he was hinting at it. But then it leads into this aspect, or maybe they didn't want to seem as crazy. They didn't want to seem crazy to people that they found some type of tech they can't explain. But it lands in this area of, even if you're scared of hurting your reputation, there's someone out there that would be a whistleblower that would just expose it and not give a fuck about their reputation. That and Edward Snowden. Why can't the government just have a whistleblower to release this information? The weird thing is that nobody knew about the social dilemma stuff. Now we know about it.
Mhm.
Did it freak people out? Sure, for 2 weeks. Then it fucking went away. If they
Mhm.
told us aliens were real, do you really think people couldn't handle it? Because I feel like if that information was going to get out and they wanted it to get out, they would just do it. They don't give a fuck about your feelings. This is what also pisses me off, is that there's a giant push for the people in power give a fuck about you. They don't. They really don't, man. If they want to fuck you over, they'll do it, and they'll do it fucking raw, and they won't even kiss you on the head when they're done. Like, it's
Yeah,
nuts to me.
yeah, not even a reach around. They don't care. They don't care at all. And it's not that I think they care. I think what they choose to manipulate or let leak, like the whole Facebook whistleblower thing. I think there's plenty of evidence there that really makes it look phony, and she's probably not the real deal, right? I think that it's more about control. They want to put a narrative out there that allows them to maintain control. So if people are starting to think there's a problem with social media has too much power, it's toxic, it's this, it's that. Well, if there's someone, oh, here's a whistleblower, then they can point at that and say, okay, well, here, somebody's doing something. And people who might have risen up and said, okay, let's take charge and stop this, maybe they kind of sit back and say, well, somebody's doing it. It's again, it's those guardrails. I think it comes down to the guardrails and keeping people where they are, and being able to have that control and not let people kind of go too far off the reservation, if you will. Like I really think that's what it comes down to.
Um, I don't know. I'm fucking. It gets me so damn heated. It's not like because I hate this. I hate this idea, and this is what kind of helps people understand in a way is that like there's like always two sides and there's always more. There's always so much more. Like two sides of the coin is the dumbest expression because there's always way more than two sides. There's the people that think that, oh, then you're a sheep. And then there's the people that go, you're just a nut job. What about the people that are just questioning in the middle, man? There is so much. I mean, if you just open up your mind a little bit more and see that there could be a possible infinite amount of solutions out there, just like there could be a possibility that there could be time travel. I have no
Yep.
clue, but people want to put everything in a fucking box that necessarily doesn't need to be put in a box.
Yep. That's that outside edge of the coin. So people think it's two sides, but they forget about that edge in between.
Yeah.
You can look at it that way. I mean, I think you have to be open to possibilities, but at the same time, I want to see, if not proof, something that at least gives me something substantial that I can point to and say, okay, that makes sense, or that's absolutely ridiculous. I don't believe that. And I think there's too much that people just go with and believe, kind of sight unseen, like, oh well, this person said it or that person said it. I mean, and I think people also make that argument. I believe in God. I'm not super religious, but people make the same arguments about things with God. Like, okay, well, you can't see this, you can't prove this, you can't prove that. Okay, maybe not, but at least being open to what's put in front of you, and not just making a determination. Like I think a big problem is these trusted sources and, oh, so and so said it, CNN said it, or the New York Times said this. Well, what does that really mean at this point? Because you have to think about the motives behind it. What's basically follow the money. How are they making money, and why? What's their motive to say one thing versus another?
I don't know.
It's heavy. It's heavy stuff, man. I think you know there's a lot that we probably don't know that goes on behind the scenes that would probably be incredibly shocking. Um,
Yeah, why did
but
in the
we're
beginning of the pandemic they say actually a smoker might be at less of a chance to get COVID because the smoke nicotine won't stick to his lungs. It's like, all right, what fucking tobacco pharmacy was paying you that one?
Yeah, that's okay. I didn't hear that one actually, or if I did, I don't remember hearing it.
I gotta
And
look
that's the
that one
other
up.
thing. There's
You're like the
there's so
10th
much.
person who said I haven't heard that. I'm like, then I can't. I didn't make it up. I fucking heard it
No,
from
no, no. I
somewhere.
don't. I'm not saying you made it up. Go ahead and look it up. But I think that's just a byproduct of like what you said. Even if they came out and said aliens are real, UFOs are real. This is where they're from. This is what they want. How long, would the buzz around that last? People always find something else to move on to.
Well, recently I saw a friend of mine put up a thing saying that like what is it, Advil or all those types of anti-inflammatories actually might help with the disease. But then I was like, and I posted this article from last year that said actually it might be the cause of it. Like that's what people were doing at some point in my town. People threw Advil stuff away because they thought that might hurt or might make you more vulnerable to this disease. And now they're saying it's the opposite. And I'm like, what the fuck's going on? Is like everyone just getting a cash back off of this thing? Yeah, scientific paper right here. Scientific paper claiming smokers less likely to acquire blank retracted over tobacco industry links. So, a scientific paper claiming current smokers are 23% less likely to be diagnosed with 19 compared to non smokers have been retracted by. Oh, now it's saying it's been retracted. But this is 5 months ago. The initial article was posted in April of 2020. So that means a year ago, that's what they thought and they had to retract it. But see that? Everyone sees the headlines, not the retraction. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. It's a great way to put it.
Fucking crazy. It's like the Kellogg's shit that's going actually affects me too. The Kellogg strike. You didn't hear
I
about this?
haven't heard. No,
Oh,
I haven't
all
heard
the
about
Kellogg's
this.
workers are on strike. Their 5-year contract went up. So everybody's on strike asking for more money and more benefits and more vacation and all this type of stuff. And they're all outside. There's a giant, it's trending on Twitter and stuff too. But there's a giant, and
Twitter's a cesspool. I don't really go on there
yeah.
much.
Well, there's a guy holding a sign and it says it's Tony the Tiger. and it says, you know how they says they're great. Well, he says they're greedy. And then he's like, but it's all of them doing that. And I'm like, yes, because what's important about this now is that you not only just weaponized yourselves as a community workers, but you have just weaponized their mascots. And that's what it starts to get a little bit intense, which starts having an impact with people is when they see their favorite cereal mascot, like a fucking frosted shredded mini wheat holding up a fucking sign saying communist Russia, you get a little scared. And I
Yeah.
think that's it. But it's crazy because I watched the CEO's video of it, and this woman comes out and goes, our workers get plenty of paid time off, and they also get $120,000 salary a year. And I'm like, you have 50,000 employees that are making 120,000 a year.
No way.
You definitely maybe have one or two people that are making that much money that run the whole thing, maybe, but I don't think all of them, or they wouldn't be striking because that's a lot of fucking money.
Yeah. So yeah, that's more than enough. I mean, I don't even make, well, I won't say what I make, but that's way more than I make. I'll put it that way. But so Kellogg's, do they make your Honey Smacks? Is this
Yeah,
how it affects you?
make all the basic cereals, man.
Well, I mean, not all. You also have General Mills is the other
Kellogg's is,
big one.
yeah, but Kellogg's like Special K, all the shit I fucking eat.
Yeah, but what about like Lucky Charms? That's General
Too
Mills.
sugary.
Um,
Cookie Crisp, too
Cheerios,
sugary. Cheerios, bland
Cheerios.
as hell.
You got to go Honey Nut. You got to go Honey Nut.
I don't put
It's
milk on it.
perfect.
So I don't put milk on it. So you don't get, it's like eating frosted mini wheats. I don't put milk on it. So then it doesn't taste good. It doesn't absorb the
Wait,
flavor. I eat dry cereal. We talked about this.
we
I use them as
did, but you,
croutons in my salad, but I haven't even eaten
oh,
solid food in like months. I've been eating shakes.
still, you're still doing the shakes?
Yeah, I can't eat.
Oh man.
I'm in hell. Actually, I'm used to it. I got some good protein powders that are like, bam.
So do you just take the Honey Smacks and blend it up into a powder and throw it into the shake?
No, what?
Well, why haven't you thought about doing that yet?
I can chew up Honey Smacks. I can't eat like beef that just sits in my
Oh,
stomach.
oh, oh, okay. Well, you said you were just doing shakes. I'm thinking like literally just shakes.
Shakes with like a handful of cereal on top. And I like to do some rice and beans sometimes too.
Okay, all right. Nothing wrong with rice and beans.
That's a different meal though. It can't be the same.
Well, yeah, no, I would hope it would be different.
Those are giving me nightmares though. I think it's the rice and beans because I always wake up in the middle of the night hungry as shit. And I walk downstairs and eat some beans and a little bit of rice. And I get these horrible fucking nightmares. That's it. Do you want to hear my story now?
You know what? You read my mind when you said nightmares. I'm like, yes,
I'm
this is
only
where
going
I
to tell
wanted
you
to
a
go
little bit
right
of it
now.
because everyone
Okay,
else is going to think I'm a psychopath, and this would be a horrible way to end the episode. So we're going to have to talk for a little bit more after.
that's fine.
So I woke up at I think 9:30 p.m. and I only had been asleep probably 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and I felt like I slept a little bit, but I didn't have a dream. It was just emptiness. Then I was like, I think I can go back to bed. So I went downstairs, had a little snack, came back upstairs, and I went to bed. I slept 30 minutes. I woke up at like 10:10 or 10:05 or something like that. But this dream, dude, was so fucking intense. It was like I was in my house, but I was like, I guess it was like a birthday party, and I had a kid. I had a kid, a little baby, and I was like, what? Like I had people that
Robbie
just,
Jr.
I had hang on a second. It gets bad. They hand me this kid, and I'm like, what is this? And I guess this person is like my significant other that I had this kid with, and I'm like, oh, so this is my kid. I was like, this is awesome. I was like, how do you be a parent? I'm always afraid to hold little kids. I think I break them. And then I'm like, like having fun. And like he starts screaming. And I'm like, does he need to be changed? No. Is he hungry? No. What is it? What is it? Why does he keep screaming? Why does he keep screaming? He's thirsty. Got to get him some water. So I fucking rush to the fucking sink. I go and put my cup under the water to fill it up with some water, to give him a little sip of some water. And I'm like, in my dream, I'm like, it feels like I'm floating above my body a little bit. Like I'm just watching it all happen. And I go and try and stick the water in his mouth. He starts screaming. I'm like, what? And then I pull back and I notice the water is like black. It is just dark as shit. And I'm like, what? And I knew this is where my brain psychology linked this in. One, I'm afraid of like having a kid. because I'm afraid I'm going to do something horrible and something's bad's going to happen. This is my thought. So I'm giving this, you're going to analyze this once I get done. Second, I watched a fracking video before I went to bed. Like I was late at night on my phone. I watched a fracking and thing where a guy he put one of those masks, like the plastic ones, or not the plastic ones, the doctor ones, but the fake. Well, everyone got them. You get fucking tossed about like a tissue on the road. And he put it under his water fountain and turned the water on, and it soaked up all the stuff and purified the water basically. Didn't fucking work. Some person tried it in another video and it's like, it didn't fucking work. But I got new water out of the thing and it came out clear. And I went to go and I had my hand on his back, like I usually do. So like where his heart and everything would be, like you would feel it beat. And I started feeding him water. He started guzzling it down. Like, I mean, like almost half a cup in a matter of like a second. I was like, damn. And then I just felt the heart explode. And I don't mean to laugh, but your face. So his heart exploded. And then I always remember, oh, why you're not supposed to drink water so fast. And I mean, stricken with like after this dream, I woke up crying. But it was like the worst experience. I could never, like, I remember that feeling. I like in my hand right now, even talking about it, I can feel what it felt like. It's like if you burst a firecracker in your hand. And it was a shock. It was, and then like the rest of the dream was way worse than that, but it wasn't worse in the sense of how it made me felt. It was worse more in a sense of what it did to me. Eventually I lost an eye, because the person I was with, I guess a month later after that incident had happened, just never forgave me. And I guess we're sitting like talking about it. Like, we never talk about this. We should talk about this because it's just been different ever since. And just took a knife right into my fucking eye. It didn't kill me. It just blinded me. And then the rest of the dream I won't even go into. It's just fucking horrible. But that specific moment, that first kickoff into the dream, was just it was like so much was happening. Like if you had like the water boiling, then you had something else going on, you're talking on a cell phone, you're doing all these things. It's just so much for your mind to compact. And I haven't told this story on this podcast yet, and I don't think I ever will, because I told one person at work, like, Robbie, you're a psychopath. And I'm like, dude, like, even saying that, I get it jokingly, it fucking hurts, because that sensation, I don't think I can ever get out of my fucking head. And I don't know where that came from, though, unless I thought of, if you drink water too fast, you can hurt your heart. But then I started realizing, oh, that's why they never let babies drink water less. They always give them a little bit and then back it away, a little bit and then back it away, because you're supposed to limit. And I do fucking got me, man. I was like, my brain just fucking threw me through it's beans, man. Kidney beans. Kidney beans are a fucking deadly nightmare killer.
I almost wonder, like, I could see this two ways. So I think
I just want to, I do a lot of improv on my show, but that's not improv. That really fucking happened. That was a terrible experience.
Yeah, no, I believe you. I think there's two ways to look at it. So
somebody laughed too. What the hell was that? Or is that your dog?
No, it was probably my chair.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I guess so. I thought it was somebody laughing in the background.
Loud chair.
Like,
no,
laugh at my pain.
I hope nobody's laughing, because there's nobody here but me. Somebody's laughing, we got a problem.
Aliens.
Maybe. It's one of two things. I think you put your finger on the first one. It could be like the fear of babies, and that you'll hurt them or whatever. But I don't necessarily think it's that. Like, I think it might correlate with something else. So is there anything else? And you don't have to answer this question, but I think this might be kind of more where it goes. Is there something else currently in your life that you're either doing, or you're about to do, or you're thinking of doing, that might terrify you to the point where you're afraid you're going to screw the whole thing up?
I don't know. Maybe we're about to hit 1,000.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, and I know your plan after you hit 1,000, you're going to take some time, kind of
move.
get right. So is it maybe subconsciously something to do with that? Does it have something to do with,
But could
you
my
know, you,
brain like do a moving truck that was on fire, not a fucking kid dying?
I mean, I can't speak for what your brain can or can't do, but I think,
I need a goddamn therapist. That's what I fucking need.
hey,
Jesus
there's no problem
Christ.
with that. Hey, it's definitely an option. Um, but no, I think sometimes a lot of things happen in terms of metaphors, especially with dreams. It's usually not going to be a direct correlation. Like I might have talked about this before when we talked about dreams, but I used to have a dream where I was out in this big field and there was a hill, and I would see all these different people, whether it was friends, family, people in my life. They'd go over the hill and they would never return. So I don't know if that was corresponding to like a fear of abandonment or what it was, but it was obviously not the same as somebody just up and leaving, getting in a car and going. Like we were in some strange field and they're walking over some, grassy knoll and disappearing. So I think a lot of what happens with dreams is metaphor, right? Like the dream that I told on your podcast before about I step out of the train station and it looks like I'm in Moscow.
Yeah.
Well, that's not obviously a
Going to temple.
yeah, yeah, a direct correlation or anything. It's a lot of it's metaphor. It's meant to make you think of certain things. So I don't know. It for me, and again, I preface it by saying I'm no expert. I'm intrigued by dreams. I think it's just something in general about, whether it's a moving thing or something else. In general, I think it's more about making sure that you make the right decisions and you don't mess up whatever it is that it's supposed to be correlated to. I think
Maybe
that's kind
thinking
of the
things
subconscious.
through.
What's that?
I enhance my life by trying to look at a side I've never heard before. I never even understood that that could happen, and it happened in my dreams. So now I'm deathly afraid of everything.
Well, yeah,
I
I can
just
see
think your
being
brain,
afraid.
like your dreams, like the earth has a way of resetting you as a person with the natural flow of the way that the earth is kind of moving is kind of astounding to watch. And I think your brain has a natural way during its dream processes or something like that to bring you back to a balance or come up with some issues that you're dealing with mentally that you might not be dealing with at the forefront. Because I also have
Mhm.
had this repeating dream that I'm at like a massive global gym type thing, like a massive workout thing. And I'm like, fuck. And there's just everybody's like working out. It's a bunch of fucking people there from hot chicks, even hot dudes, whatever you want to say. I don't care. My preference, I wasn't interested in those. I was interested in the chicks, but I was also interested in lifting in
Yeah,
the weights. And part of like lifting weights is when you're lifting weights, if someone you know or you like or you think is attractive is watching, you kind of extra flex it a little bit to get get the get the pump going. You know what I'm talking about? You get it going a little bit.
yeah,
And the weirdest thing happened was I was like doing my lat pull downs, and every like people were wearing swimsuits. There was a pool behind me. Like I was doing lat pull downs. There's people playing in the pool. And suddenly everything just got soaked in like soap, like you're in a car wash. And then like you're trying to lift, everything's covered in soap. You're slipping all over the fucking place. And then everyone, as sprinklers came on, everyone's just soaked. So now you're working out with fucking heavy machinery and everything's goddamn wet. And it's just a terrible shit show. There's people doing gymnastics. I'm trying to like, I get up off the lap machine. I'm trying to like walk away. Like what? I'm trying to like recognizing I'm in a dream. And I'm like kind of like walking out of the like out of like the lifting part of it and trying to like walk to like the front door to get out. And there's like gymnasts. And I'm like, somebody's going to break their fucking neck because it's water everywhere. And I'm just like, and then I wake up and then it's like, what the fuck does that mean? I don't know.
throwing a curveball at me here. That's a an interesting one.
The weird thing is how my brain makes it look like it looked like the size of a basketball at a basketball court at a school with the auditorium and the bleachers, but there were bleachers there, but then they had the giant square windows that you could see out, and it was just a beautiful sunny day out, like some nice blue clouds, all this type of shit. And I'm like, what the? Why does my brain go into such deep? They had a high dive in the same thing. It was huge. It was like 50,000 of these auditorium things or these but basketball courts. They had a high dive. I remember in the beginning of my dream, I was playing on that for a little bit, and I was like, I want to jump off this thing. As soon as I got up there, it's like 1,000 feet tall. I'm like, this is gonna be the best dive of my entire fucking life. And I ended up doing this dive. It was great. And I ended up getting out of the water, and I was in a hoodie too. So I was soaked in a hoodie. I started lifting. Everybody's lifting and soap, water, and they're all fucked. And I was hoping, like, as I was walking out to these gymnasts, going to break their neck. I was hoping one of them was, just because it's a dream. It's not like anybody's actually dying, but I kind of want to see like a fucking dislocated leg or maybe an arm fly off.
So, okay, so I have to ask about this one. So, were you enjoying yourself, like with the conditions, with everything around you, or did you feel like did you want to leave, or were you happy where you were with what was going on?
I don't know. I was comfortable. I was in a gym, but then I was also uncomfortable because I don't like being in soaking clothes.
Yeah. Okay.
I was
So,
I was more pissed at the concept of I could not find a good, because I would go to my work, and this is one thing that really fucking heats me up, is that and it's not politics either. It's fucking just life shit. When I go to
mhm.
go work out on something and someone is on it and they never get the fuck off of it, because every equipment I would go to, well, there's chest, there's a bunch of people on the bench presses. Go over to, and everyone's super fucking like huge, like bodybuilder Ronnie Coleman style. And I'm like going, only thing left was lats. I was like, well, I fucking like lats, but I'm lifting lats. And then a bunch of girls are all working out together. And they're like, I mean, the girls hasn't, they're older women. They're like in their like 30s, late 30s or whatever. So I fucking, in my dream, I probably still wouldn't have a shot. But they're fucking lifting. And I'm like, oh, I'm getting intimidated over here because they're jacked bodybuilder chicks. And I'm like, fucking, just get up and get off. And I was like, maybe today's not the day for me. I'll come back later or something. And then that's when I started heading for the door. And then next thing you know, there's gymnasts in front of me fucking doing the pole where they're flipping around it. And I think that might come from when I watch a lot of like TikTok videos. It's a lot of that shit, but not TikTok videos, like Facebook Reels. It's a lot of that shit, that or alligators.
Alligators and gymnasts is what
Do,
you see on your reels.
doing the pull up bar, swing around on the thing where they go all the way around like 50,000 times in a minute. And I'm like, whoa,
Oh yeah, the what is that called? The uneven bars.
just some crackhead at a park. It doesn't fucking
That
matter.
too. You know, it's funny though with the reels algorithms are so interesting to me because I noticed there was a reel, you know, because as you scroll through Instagram, it gives you a few reels and then you can scroll past it or you can click on them. And I remember one, it was like, oh, it's a cat. And I clicked on it. Now, every time I go on Instagram, all three reels, it's cats. It's a cat meowing or a cat doing something crazy. It's always cats, all three of them.
You got a bitch ass algorithm. My algorithm's fucking alligators killing people and shit.
I mean, cats are pretty awesome. I like cats. I mean, don't you like cats? Or are you more of a dog person?
I'm more of a dog person.
Okay. Yeah, dogs are okay. I think the fact that you can have cats, you can go about your business and do things and leave food out, and you know your cat can go in the litter box. It's just easier to live your life without planning it around. Oh, I have to be home to let my dog out, or I got to feed my dog. Like they're great, but I think they're more work. Is
Yeah,
what I'm saying. Yeah,
they're worth it.
yeah, I guess for some people.
So about the gym dream, you got any analysis on that one?
Well, I think you know. Obviously, we know the gym is a place where you feel comfortable.
Yep.
So the fact that you were able to kind of keep like stay there, keep working out. Okay, I'm going to go to the lat pull down, or I'm going to do whatever. I think that might be kind of pointing to the fact that no matter what's going on in your life, like that's a constant that you can rely on. The gym, you can rely on that being kind of a sanctuary for you, maybe.
But what about all the soapy tits? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. There were a lot though. Holy shit.
I think that's, maybe bringing the subconscious desires to the forefront, like what you're looking for. Maybe, I don't know.
I don't know about that. Maybe. I'm always thinking about something like that. Boobs or cereal.
Maybe it's those are two
I saw
interesting things.
I saw a fucking TikTok or a reel, whatever you want to call it, where the how to impress a guy. And it was a bunch of like reaction videos of like other people in the corner boxes. One dude's in the left corner, other dude's in the right corner. And it's just the main video in the middle. And it's like how to make a guy pay attention or whatever. Grabs a rock, and you're standing all these guys like, all right, what type of Antifa bullshit is this? Some type of feminist trying to make fun of a bunch of fucking dudes. Grabs a rock and just chucks it off a fucking mountain into a pond. And it just made a giant splash. And then everyone's like, and I was like, fuck, dude, that is actually really entertaining of watching a fucking rock just go into water. I was sitting there like, haha, yeah. And then everyone's clapping. I'm like, oh, that was the fucking joke. And I'm like, it's kind of like the stereotypical, like, what do men see when they stare into a fire? It's like, yeah, I don't know what the fuck that is, but damn it, it's with the rocks too, where you throw a rock into a pond and just watch it go. I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong.
No, so other than the rock, was there anything else that, like, were there other things that they did to get the reactions? It was just the rock.
Just the fucking rock landing in a pond and the whole entire thing splashed up. And I was like, God, that is fucking soothing. It's like watching someone skip a stone.
Yeah, when you said rock and throwing it into a pond, that's the first thing I thought of, was skipping a stone.
And she just tossed it right in there.
She just tossed it. Yeah.
I was like, fuck, that is a good one. I like that. I'm simple as shit, I guess. I don't know.
Hey, I mean, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
That's all I got. That's all I got. That's all I got. We've been talking for an hour and a half already, man. I know I probably wasted enough. Are you off today or are you on lunch break?
I'm off today.
Okay.
I'm off today, yeah.
It was a good podcast.
I had a lot of fun. I always have fun. It's always good getting to chat with you.
Is there a place where people can find you? It's still Suburban Phoodie?
It's still there, yeah. Haven't done anything with it. Although I think after the last time I talked to you, sometimes people will still tag me in things, and just to return the favor and try to promote that other food page, I'll share it to the story or something like that. And I did that, and I got a DM from this girl that I used to work with, and she goes, "Oh my God, is Suburban Phoodie coming back? I need it. Is it coming back?" I'm like, I don't know, maybe. I don't know. I'll think about it. But she saw the story posted. What?
Do it.
I know. Maybe. Okay. I'm feeling closer now to being ready to do it than in a while. So we'll see. Maybe.
Okay. I'll link it in the description. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up the show?
No, I don't think so. Just as always, thanks for having me, and it's been a pleasure.
And don't eat beans before bed.